Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of History After Hours. My name is Kevin Pumphrey, and with me, like normal, is Mr. Ron Franklin and Mr. Jeremy Nixon. Also joining us, Miss Emily Diedrich. We are all history teachers at Lakeside High School in beautiful Hot Springs, Arkansas. We are recording this on April the 6th, 2023, and it is another Ask Us Anything live recording at Kollective Coffee. Bunches of students showed up, even though there was a lot of sports stuff going on, and they lined up and they asked great questions from serious to silly. So with that, we hope you enjoy the podcast. Hello, and welcome to another edition of History After Hours. We are here live at Kollective Coffee with a bunch of students looking at us now, and they have a big line, and they're about to ask some very, very important questions. The fate of humanity rests on these questions. So, please state your name for the record and ask us your question.
I'm Ellie Diedrich, and my world-changing question is, who is the most overrated or underrated celebrity?
Oh, you know what I'm going to say.
That's a setup, man.
Okay, you're going to exempt
right. Taylor Swift?
Okay. I'll have to think then.
A current celebrity?
Annie. That's going to be tough.
You know, for the longest time I would have said Meryl Streep, but I've kind of changed on that.
Well, okay, we'll explore that idea. Like, what do you
I think I just got older and had better taste.
So you don't like...
I didn't used to like her as an actress, like movie-wise.
Was there a moment where you're like turned off by something she did, or were you just...
I don't know if...
Or you just thought she was mediocre at best?
I just thought she was overrated. I was like, yeah, she's all right.
Okay.
But then I think it was like the movie Doubt. She played the nun in the...
Oh, I don't know that. I don't think I saw that.
And then I was like, okay, maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, I mean, my first answer is obvious, always.
My answer is for overrated is Tom Cruise.
Oh, that's a good one.
Hey, Tom Cruise is his.
How dare you?
He's at his best when he plays little short jerk dudes on screen, because he is a little short jerk dude, you know. So he's not really acting at that point. He's just being himself. But he's just. I mean, I like some of his movies. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm a big fan of like the Mission Impossibles and the Ghost Recons and that stuff. Other than that, I'm not really a big fan. There's a poster on my wall that's like Tom Cruise is dead, and that's kind of how he is to me. Yeah.
I mean, for me, music is you'd think I'd have a lot of answers. And here's my two. I'm not going to call anybody out just in case one day they give me a job. But to me, I'm really a lot about talent, which I don't have that much of, but I can recognize people who do. And so there's a lot of people in the country genre who sing a lot about America, and they get really famous, but they can't really sing well or play an instrument well. So there's that genre of people. You probably know who I'm talking about. And then there's a lot of people in the hip-hop world who just have, somebody's just got to put on a trap beat, and they kind of mumble over it with no real meaningful lyrics. There's those folks as well. And then I guess I'll throw in like Kardashians and whatnot. But,
oh yeah, that's
where I was going. Is the Kardashians? I think
just in mass,
overrated.
all of them.
Yes, whoever elevated that family.
How many of them are there? Like 12? Are they like the Duggars at this point? Or are they just going to keep multiplying out?
They probably don't.
Do you even know who that? Do you know that reference when I say the Duggar family? Because it's Arkansas. You should know these people.
I brought up the Duggars in class the other day, and they didn't know what I was talking about.
Oh man, how many kids do you have to have in this state before they give you a tax exemption? Is that a thing? I don't know.
So the Duggars is a family in Arkansas that's had quite a few children. How many? 19. Is it 19 in counting?
I thought it was in counting. Didn't they have another one?
I thought it went over 19.
Well, you can't count that one guy who went to prison for... Didn't one of them go to prison?
A few generations. You know how they talk about Genghis Khan and how many descendants he has? The Duggars, if they all have big families, just a few generations, there'll be thousands of them.
Italy would have given them a medal.
They would have, yeah. At 14, yeah. You're saving the planet. They see it is life-changing now that we've said that. Yeah. Repopulate. We don't have enough people on the planet, do we? Kevin Pumphrey.
No,
don't you have a spiel on too many people on the planet?
Yes, we have too many, but I think it's going to level out. That used to be my big fear. The people that know this stuff seems to think because the countries like us that are really civilized are having less and less kids, and we actually might be in a demographic problem. We're not going to have very many young kids, but we're going to have a ton of old people. So like Social Security, where young people pay in, how are you going to take care of all the old people? that's going to be a problem in a lot of countries, including ours.
I read the other day that Japan's going through that issue right now. Like, they don't have enough people to replace the people that are about to die.
Yeah, China's going to be the worst off of all of them. That, like, the next generation, I don't know what they're going to do. They're in a crisis situation that no one's talking about. But anyhow, we're going to see.
When I was in college, I took a gerontology class, and we read a paper called the 2030 Project, basically predicting by the year 2030, the older population would outnumber the younger population, and there would no longer be enough people to pay in taxes to pay Social Security.
Wow.
Yeah, I read an article the other day that said something about we'll hit, I forget if it was 8 or 8.5 billion or whatever, and then we'll level back off. Like, we'll have about 1 billion die off. Like, oh, that's
Yeah, if you look at
nice.
a population graph, it's insane. It's like this kind of straight line, and then the 20th century happens, and it's billions. So we had 1.5 billion people in the year 1900. Here we are 120, whatever, 3 years later, and we have 8 billion. So there's more people living now than basically populated the planet before 1900
You mean altogether?
altogether. Yeah. There's more people living on this planet now than ever lived before, like, 1900. Something crazy like that.
So what you're saying is, come on, global warming.
It might take us out.
No, come on,
Something's-
asteroids.
Something's going to thin the herd eventually.
Well, didn't we talk about last time how they're going to clone dinosaurs, and that'll be the end of us all, really, right
Yeah.
there. One of those gets loose, we're
All
doomed.
right. Next question.
My name is Joshua Weed, and my question is, if you could pass one law that can never be changed or reversed, what would it be?
No more laws. No, that's not it.
Wait, didn't we do that with the Constitution? We just don't change it anymore.
Oh, yeah.
I'm still pondering what you said.
Okay,
No
so-
more.
Yeah, pass one law.
Would be no.
No,
more
no.
laws.
I mean your answer. Like no more laws. You're gonna pass the law. that
Well,
says no more
here's
laws.
the problem
We've got
with-
enough laws. That's it.
No matter
Just
what law
let's
you
adhere
pick,
to the ones we've already got.
whatever you think is right now, correct. Whatever law you want to talk about, humanity might disagree with you or whoever our overlords are in 100 years. So I don't know how you could come up with a law that we know would be applicable forever,
Yeah.
except for don't murder. That seems to be cross-culturally.
I mean, unless you get permission, then it's not murder, right?
Well, unless you go to war or unless somebody else kills
Self-defense.
somebody, and then never mind.
Yeah, I mean, things change so quickly, even in the matter of a short period of time, that there's no way you can actually anticipate it. I mean, if you look back at just our founding documents and the way they're being interpreted, or the way they've changed in interpretation, it's just, yeah, there's not a law that you can do that, like Pumphrey said, that you'll look back on and be like, yep, that was 100% solid, don't need to change that.
How about a law that says all children deserve food? Like, no matter what, we're going to make sure we feed our kids. That way they grow up and can pay taxes and can take care of us when we're old. Yeah, go back to that statement, I guess. No, but that seems to be a solid thing. Yeah, some countries argue about that. I mean, I think we even argue about that across the United States. Do children deserve... I mean, if let's say you can't afford that, does society owe an obligation to, especially the young people who can't do that for themselves?
So you have a community where that's the law. They're starving, so all the older folks and adults give all their food to the kids.
I didn't say all the food.
All
kids
the
need a little
adults
bit of food.
die, and you have nothing but kids running amok, and everyone dies.
Well, I mean, as going back to the previous question and building off the two together now, which is weird, but the tax base shrinks. You were talking about social welfare programs shrink, and that's that's how Milk Snatcher Thatcher got her nickname in Britain.
We just got through talking about Thatcher.
So
You're right, yeah.
everything comes full circle. I talk about it in Comparative. He talks about it in Euro, and then you take the kids' milk money away, and you get the nickname Milk Snatcher Thatcher, and it never goes away.
It's all I can see now when I see her face, just snatching up milk from kids.
You're welcome.
By the way, just quick tangent. This is the problem with artificial intelligence, is because we don't know if we can control it, but the people who think we do say we got to put human ethics in them, so they'll care about us. And the problem is we don't know what human ethics are going to be in the centuries to come. So this is one of the things AI people are looking at right now.
Did you see the story the other day where Elon Musk and some of the boys were like, hey, we need to put the brakes on some AI because it could come back to get us quicker than we thought it could? I mean, I don't know if anybody's taking him seriously or not. Isn't he one of the guys who invested initially in
I think so.
AI
But
development?
he has been vocal about the dangers of it for a long time. Any law you want to pass to?
Well, I actually had an answer, and then y'all were all like, "Oh, I don't know, something could change in the future." And this maybe is a personal thing, but I think setting term limits would be something really nice. But I mean, that could be something that would need to change later in the future, but that's my first thought.
I think that's a good one because, yeah. I mean, I didn't think about that. I was thinking deep, like metaphorical laws that humans need, but term limits, that seems good. Across the board.
FDR would argue with you.
Well, to go along with that, maybe the age restriction thing. Like, you know, we talked about too young, but too old. We've had that conversation a little bit too. So term limits. If I get elected when I'm 85, then the term limits are kind of weird at that point.
Or
right?
maybe even then just like age restrictions, because again, I said I took a gerontology class in college, and if you don't know what gerontology is, it's essentially the study of old people. And so I learned that your brain at a certain age starts revoking, your taste buds start going back to what you liked as a child and things like that. So scientifically, some of these people that are in office probably shouldn't be, but that's a different story.
You know, Joe Biden does eat a lot of ice cream.
I just said that to him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pictures of him with. I
glad you said
agree
it
with
first.
the term limits. The only thing about the age thing is we don't once again know what the future is going to hold, and people might be living to 300 and they don't reach their prime
Yeah.
until 150. So
Well, didn't they just announce like the first generation that could live to be 150 could be born now? That's insane to me.
I thought you were
You're
living forever.
immortal.
I'm not talking about me. Yeah, you said generation. That's just okay. So here's completely tangential, but when Bush was governor in Texas, didn't he try to pass a law to ban ice cream cone eating in public because it was immoral?
I've never heard of that.
I think that's true. I think I have to double check on that, but I think it was like, you're not going to run with that? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah. All right, very good. Next question.
My name is Jacob, and my question is, if Hitler hadn't put the time, resources, and manpower into the Holocaust, would it have been possible for Germany to win World War II?
I want to make sure I understand this. You're not saying that he needed to put more resources into the Holocaust. You're saying if he had not done the Holocaust and taken those resources differently.
I mean, it's kind of the thing with the what ifs. You know, one thing changes other things, and I really don't. My answer is no. I don't think so. Maybe it takes out part of the impetus for other people joining the war, but if you take it as a threat to democracy, and then we're eventually in it, I think it probably ends the same way. But that's my take.
Yeah, I don't think that it would have made that big a difference. When you look at the things that actually brought him down, it wasn't opposition to the Holocaust. Hardly anybody knew that those things were happening until the liberations came in 1945, when the Russians start liberating camps, and then we come in afterwards, us and the British. But as far as the resource distribution or whatever, like he was running low on fuel. That was one of his biggest problems. And then you stretch yourself too thin, which we actually just got through talking about this in our sophomore classes. One of his strategies was to just take one war at a time and not have to stretch himself too thin, which was the major mistake in World War I. But it ends up, because of multiple situations, he had to spread himself thinner than they actually did in the first war. And I think that's what brought him down more than anything else. That and his continued use of barbiturates and amphetamines in his personal life, and that kept him from thinking cognitively. So those two things together, I think. Not so much the Holocaust. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, I'm wondering now, would he have had just an easy as time taking over Germany if he wasn't anti-Semitic? If he was more inclusive, because the fear-mongering probably helped him take over in the first place, so
Yeah.
maybe he doesn't even take over.
Yeah, if you want to go back that far, yeah, probably.
All right, very good. Anything?
Oh, no. I pretty much agree with what you
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
it is.
Okay,
All right,
yeah,
very
no, I had never thought of that before. It's an interesting question.
Wouldn't be a podcast if Hitler wasn't brought up at least once, though, right? Still a popular guy to bring up on a podcast because he's the typical, this is who you go to when you talk about evil.
Yeah.
Why? Is it just the time it happened plus the anti-Semitism Holocaust? Like, it's, of course, evil. But there's a lot of evil leaders that we don't put in the same...
Yeah, there's a lot of video of him being evil, though. I think maybe that's part of it. Yeah.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
A lot of video clips of him. Yeah. If you had Genghis Khan on video spitting his manifestos.
Well, no, but I think about somebody who was a contemporary of his, like Stalin. This is something we mentioned as well. Like Stalin, before World War II even started, he's killed more people than the Holocaust in his own country. So, but he didn't rant and rave, and there's no video of him like, standing on podiums or anything. It was just him waving and being, Stalin. He was very reclusive and sort of paranoid that way. So he's not on anybody's radar because he wasn't making a spectacle of himself. And I think that's part of the difference.
All right, very good. Next question.
My name is Brenna Townley, and my question is, if you could give yourself or your high school self one piece of advice, what would it be?
My go-to is always just the better you, or the sooner you learn to not care what people think, the better. That's really what I wish I could tell, just like everybody in all my classes, the kids, like, do you, be you, don't really bother worrying about what other people are doing or thinking or saying, because that's just time lost on things that you could be doing for yourself and being happy with yourself. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I can't think of anything better than that.
I was fairly self-absorbed as a teenager, and so I would probably go back and tell myself to. I don't think it was borderline narcissism, but it was a lot about me. What do I want? What do I feel? So it's almost the opposite of what you guys are saying. I did care what people thought, but I was really pushing the narrative that I didn't. But it was more about trying to figure out what I wanted and who I wanted to be and all that kind of stuff was, I mean, that's tough for a teenager. And I'm sure that everybody goes through that. But I think that if I had been more invested in other people's stories, I think maybe I would have been better off more quickly, you know?
I think.
Someone who remembers high school.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Last year.
It wasn't even 10 years ago.
I was going to say, what are we rewinding, 6, 7 years? Not even that.
Oh, yeah, not even 6, almost 6 years ago. I would say focus on my friends more. That's something that time you're never going to get back. You do not have to grow up and be an adult at 16, 17, 18. Spend time with your friends. Act like a kid. You are not an adult. Act like a kid. Enjoy that time. And just be a better friend. Ask people how they're doing. Ask people about their life. And really build meaningful connections with the people you're friends with in high school.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Deep.
My name is Emily Mays, and my question is, if you could switch lives with one teacher at Lakeside, who would it be and why?
Well, this one's immortal, so
Switch.
I don't know. I think it'd be fun for at least a little while to be Linda.
Back to
That's
McInville.
got. Yeah, I mean, it all comes full circle to McInville. That's got to be an interesting life.
I don't know.
That's courage.
You know what's weird? Okay, so I hate to say this, but I don't know everybody in the building.
That's true.
So I don't know that I have a good answer for that ultimately. Like we have our hallway of people and we don't really go too far away from that. So I don't know.
Yeah, this is risky because you never know what bag of rocks someone is dragging up a hill.
Yeah.
And as soon as you step into their shoes, you're like, oh, I didn't know this about them. You know, I've got my own bag of rocks that I'm dealing with. So it's kind of a risky move. That, by the way, that's a great, unique question. We've never been asked that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a danger lurking in that question, though, or in the answer to that question, right? Because you go, oh, so-and-so's life is, I want to be that person. Well, yeah. It's like when I hear people talking about, oh, I wish I could be that celebrity or this whatever. Like, I'll bet that's not all it's cracked up to be. Look at the fame and look at the fortune and look at their lives, and isn't it glamorous? But it's, from most of the go look at all the tragic stories that have sort of rolled through with the price of fame, you know. I think Michael Jackson is a classic example of that. Here's a guy he'd been a superstar since he was, 5 years old? The family was famous around him, but he was really the superstar really from the beginning and grew up, really anything he wanted was within his reach, you know. But he was alone and miserable, apparently. His life was collapsing around him, and he didn't know how to handle that. You become obsessed with staying at the top of your game. I just don't know that that's a life that I mean, I wouldn't trade my life for any of that, regardless of the amount of money that comes along with it. So I don't know. I try not to envy people.
Yeah, well, my first instinctual answer is McInville, just because she's like a mystical creature of the high school.
Exactly.
But then as I was sitting here pondering it, I'm like, who do I hear stories about? And then I was like, maybe Mr. Hosey. I just hear stories.
So I could be Hosey for a day.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
Maybe, yeah.
I would have to look at the salary schedule.
Yeah, I need to know the salary and are they retiring soon? Especially with what's going on. But that's a different question.
Wow.
My name is Adelie Hall, and my question is, when you were younger, who was your celebrity crush?
My answer, you won't even know who I'm talking about because I was a child of the 70s. I'll let you guys answer
Queen
first.
Victoria.
70s or 1870s?
Have you seen pictures of her when she was 18?
I guess I was peak Justin Bieber era. So Justin Bieber.
Bieber for real?
I mean, yeah.
Did you have?
I was coming up through middle school as he was getting popular, and then
You had
yeah.
Bieber fever, did you?
Yeah, I distinctly remember. No, well, one of them. Distinctly remember my little brother ripped my Justin Bieber poster off my wall, and we went on a screaming rampage running through my house over it.
Who would be number 2 to Justin Bieber if you couldn't get him?
From like when I was younger,
I don't know,
childhood. I don't remember who else was.
It was all Bieber all the time.
guess
There is no second.
I'm going back to like the 80s, and I just keep thinking. Do you remember like the era of like Debbie Gibson and Tiffany? I'm like, oh dear God, that can't be the first thing that comes to mind.
No, that is the sweet spot for me too.
See, I mean,
Yeah, I remember there was a model named Kathy Ireland was her name.
Oh.
And I remember seeing her, and I think that was kind of about the time I was like, hey. And yeah, I think that maybe happened for
There was a band called Fleetwood Mac, and one of their singers' name was Stevie Nicks, and I remember being enthralled with that person. It was like, I never had a poster though. Like, did you ever have a poster of your?
I'm not the type of person like, okay, so I like celebrity crushes and all that stuff. It doesn't affect me that much. Also, when I go see and I see celebrities, I never have an impulse to ask them for an autograph. I don't even get it. Really.
How many brushes with greatness have you had there?
Well,
sir?
I mean, like if you go to a concert or somebody that you really respect, you see somebody celebrity, and they have like a line that you can go get an autograph.
Who's the most famous person you've met?
Oh, I don't know.
Other than yourself.
That's a good question. I mean, I had an opportunity. Okay, so Dave Matthews Band was really big when I was going through the 90s, and we went to a concert, and they had a table that he went out to afterwards. And like I have a friend that they would wait in line all day for one autograph. And I was just, why? Let's go home. We know I don't know. Some people, they spend a lot of time with autographs and memorabilia, and I've never even thought about that kind of stuff. So
maybe I love it. I collect. Yeah.
Taylor Swift stuff?
Not a chance. Not a chance.
That's where this comes from. Like you had I think I'm putting it together.
You
had a celebrity crush on Taylor Swift, and then
I'm like 42.
And then,
how old is she?
She's not
that's
that much. Yeah, but then, yeah, right. Something happened, and there was like some rejection, and now you're like, forget you, Taylor Swift.
We're gonna get to the bottom of this.
You wretched bitch.
All right,
I don't know.
Very good.
There's some deep psychology going on there, maybe.
My name's Kate Foreman. What's an insult that you've received that you're the most proudest of?
An insult? I have no idea.
Wow.
They usually say that in a whisper where I can't hear it. So.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know.
I remember on stage once we had some technical problems. I was with another band, not my band, and we were having all these issues. And eventually, it was time. Okay, we got them fixed. Let's just play. And I wanted to play the song, and the drummer wanted to tell everybody in the crowd what was wrong. And I'm like, nobody cares what's wrong. Let's just play the next song. And he basically told me to, in a very harsh way. Now, that was an insult, but I'm not proud of it. Although I do think it was the right decision. So I took the insult, and I just let it go. But I can't, once again, this is what whispering is for. And a lot of people whisper insults that I don't hear. So
behind your back. I guess before I was a teacher, I worked in retail management, and I had a guy that was working for me, and I asked him to do something. I don't remember what it was, and he said, "You know what?" He said, "You are pleasantly satanic." And I said, "What?" And he's like, "You're like mean, but you smile when you do it." And I was like, "Oh, well, I guess that makes sense." Although I try not to be mean. I don't know what he was. I think he was just being funny. But yeah, that was a bizarre combination of words. But I was like, okay, I kind of get that. Pleasantly intimidating, maybe is the better way to say it. I'll be nice, but I'm gonna get you to do what I need you to do. That kind of thing. It's the best I can come up with.
I'm trying to think of. I don't know if maybe I'm just not hearing people insult me, but an instance in my sorority in college, which, that's a bad story if it's starting that way anyways. But I just basically stood up for something I believed in. I said, this is how it is, and this is why I feel that way. And a girl just looked at me and said, quit being such a B word. And
Bieber fan.
Oh, for sure.
That was the B word. Good job.
I mean, I guess I was just proud of that because I was standing up for myself, and there's nothing wrong in that. So.
And she thought you were being be
I mean,
worried about it?
Well, we were going through recruitment, which like getting new girls into our sorority. There's a whole computer system, and there's
This is not like a human trafficking story, is it?
No, there's a certain.
I don't know how
things are
sororities
supposed
work.
to be done. Mutual selection, like girls choose you, you choose girls, and it's not supposed to be like us, like hand picking people. And they were trying to change the rules and hand pick people, which you're not supposed to do. And so I kind of said, "Hey, we're not supposed to do that." And
You want to give a shout out to your sorority sisters?
no.
I guess mine is my most recent one is the AP Gov kids have been in mock trial and they're learning how to do legal things, and I'll stand behind them and object to all their questions, and they're like, "It's not fair. You're a real attorney." I'm like, "Haha, yes, I know I am," and that's an insult when someone calls you a lawyer.
That's right.
Were you a fraternity guy in college? No, you?
No, I mean I hung out with some of them, but I didn't ever pledge or anything.
Yeah, no, me either. That wasn't my thing.
All right, very
Cool.
good.
All right, yeah, thank you. That's another
Insult
unique
you're proud of.
My name's Evan Lockwood, and on a more serious note, what are your thoughts on what happened in Nashville, and what are some precautions that could have prevented it?
Okay, just to clarify, how many days ago was this now? Was it anyway? A few days ago, I guess. Somebody walked into a Christian school in Nashville and opened fire on staff and children. 6 people. Am I right about that? 3 adults, 3 children.
Yeah.
What do we think about that? Was that the question?
What precautions do we think could have been taken?
Well, we can go down different paths here. So, what precautions? But we could also talk about, what the school could have done maybe differently. But also, like, what are officials and our political leaders? What should they do about that, if anything? Let me back up just a second. I just found out that a day or so ago, like, students across Tennessee walked out of the classroom in protest and to try to get lawmakers' attention and get people, or at least get a conversation going about what should happen. But I saw that as a byline on a different post on Twitter. Like, where was the media coverage on that? Like, that seems like somebody should have that should have made bigger news. I don't know what the percentage was of students that walked out, but apparently it was a pretty organized thing. Thousands, I want to say. But nobody talked about it. None of the mainstream media people picked up on that. And I don't know if they're avoiding it or they're being pressured to avoid it or I don't know. So, but go ahead.
I was just saying, I think there's a lot of attention for this specific instance on the shooter and a bunch of legislation that's being passed in southern states regarding trans people, and that's getting a lot more attention. I didn't see anything about the walkout, but I haven't looked a lot into this specific instance. I don't know all the details. As a teacher, I try to almost avoid looking at that stuff. I watched the body cam footage and it really bothered me. So I just tried to not.
Yeah, I get that. We literally I was talking to a couple of kids in last period AB Gov today about what the plan is if that happens in my classroom. And that's one, really awful that I've had to think about, and 2, really awful that I have to plan. But it's a reality. My response always on this is our government has become unresponsive to the majority of people. If you look at the polls, if you look at the data, about 80% of Americans favor gun reform, whether it's background checks, whether it's red flag laws, things of that nature, but nothing gets done.
What's the percentage of people who support assault weapon bans?
I haven't looked at that in a while, so I don't want to mislead anyone on that one.
I know it's skewed by political party.
Yeah, of course.
But I wonder what it is nationwide.
But if you look at some of the federal government passed legislation, a year or so ago, that had some bipartisan changes, and states aren't even trying to do that. That goes back to Tennessee right now. There was a protest building off of the student protest where legislators on the floor of the legislature in Tennessee protested.
Only 3 of them.
Three of them. They're in the process right now, and I'm dropping my phone twice, and I'm trying to keep updates with it. But they're voting to expel them from the legislature for standing up and saying, we need to reform gun laws. And they said, yes, you broke a rule. Yes, you were on the House floor when you shouldn't have. Yes, that's all true. But what's more important?
That the only times that people have been expelled from the Tennessee legislature are like actual crimes. Like one guy was like caught bribery was one of the issues, and then I think another one was convicted of I think I'm saying that right. Sexual misconduct is the word they used, and those people were expelled. But these expulsions are for voicing an opinion oppositely of the majority in the legislature in Tennessee, right?
Yes.
Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, so that seems punitive.
Yep.
And I mean, is that a valid thing for them to be able to do? Or do those members have recourse to
no, there's
that?
no recourse. So it's a political decision of the body, and I mean, the court systems have repeatedly said that, we don't enter into political fights, we don't enter into political questions. Sometimes they do what they say, sometimes they don't. But
is there any kind of due process there, or is it just like we voted and you're out, and that's it, and no matter what? I mean, these people represent like hundreds of thousands of constituents. Yeah.
Yep.
And so that doesn't matter now. You just circumvent the voting process too.
Whatever the body has adopted for their rules of procedure. So for Tennessee, it's 3/4 of vote, which would be really hard to get normally. But because both states and federal government districts are gerrymandered, the dominant party in Tennessee has, even though they only get about, say, 60 to 65% of the vote, they have 75 of the 100 seats. Yeah. So they have a supermajority.
There you go.
So I've done some research on this. It's not an easy solution to anything. There is one thing that I think could be done across the board that would help this kind of situation, and that is to, whoever the shooter is, the media is forbidden to release any information about the shooter, because a lot of these are for attention and all that. If you take the attention away, it might help prevent some people going this route. But as far as when you start talking about guns, taking guns away, certain guns away, the evidence is really all over the place as far as what might help and might not help. I mean, we have more guns now than ever before, and the shootings are horrible. But the total number of gun violence has been going down, which is, weird. I don't know. In every state, that's the problem. The thing with federalism is states have a lot of power over their own thing. So, but I do think one thing that should be done, or I wish they would do, is have basically a media blackout on all of these shooters, so it would at least be harder to politicize the issue.
The background story on the shooter in this one was really the focal point rather than the incident itself, and that was almost predictable, Yeah,
and if somebody's doing this to get attention, but know that they're not going to get in the paper, their name, nothing about them is going to be released, then they're not going to get attention. So maybe that changes some people's minds.
Well, yeah, no, I get that, but I'm saying that from the media and the political sort of spin on these things, the focal point was always, well, we can't talk about this other thing, but we're going to focus on something that wasn't really even the issue to begin with. It was a distraction ultimately. I mean, you hate it, and I swear, man, the first school shooting I can think of was in Jonesboro, here in Arkansas. That was the first one that at least got my attention. Is that the first one nationwide?
It's one of the earliest. I don't know if it's the first, but
it was
one of the
earliest.
earliest.
It was way before Columbine, though, and that's the one where people really kind of get they focus on that, but they missed this other one somehow. But I remember, and it's like, oh, listen to the old guy go, oh, back in my day. Well, but it just was not anything that it was not on our radar at all. I never dreamt that there would ever be something like that, and there were guns on campus. There were students who hunted after school, who had weapons in their vehicles because they were going to leave from school and go immediately out to the woods or whatever. And I mean, they weren't loaded, but they were racked, and you could see them, and nobody thought twice about it because we didn't have to be paranoid about it. You see what I mean? But now all of a sudden, as a teacher, like, we have to be cognizant of that, and I hate that, but it's absolutely something that we have to spend part of our day. You have to know where the exits are. You have to know what the response would be, and that really saddens me. So to kind of answer the question a little bit more directly, I wish we could do something. I wish there were more people who were serious about finding an answer, or at least some sort of bipartisan solution, rather than just stand in the corners and scream insults at each other. That doesn't help anybody. And in the meantime, it just sets up the shooting gallery for the next one, and more kids are going to die before this is all said. That is a continually unfolding tragedy. It's a future tragedy. We just have to wait for the next one, and it's enraging, actually. I don't have an answer, but smart people ought to get together and try to figure it out.
Yeah.
All
right. Next question.
My name is Pike Williams, and I was wondering if you believe that there could be like a perfect form of government, and what would that look like?
Nope.
Let the lawyer answer.
I just say that, and I mean, when we talk in all of my gov classes, government is a social construct. It is man-made, and whenever you have something designed by man who has flaws and can be corrupted, any system that's designed by man, implemented by man, is prone to corruption. So, nope, I just don't think it exists.
Do you have a perfect ideal then, if whether it's implemented or not?
Social democracy, probably.
Something that does the most good for the most people. That sort of fundamentalist.
If you're looking at the quote unquote happiest countries in the world, if you're looking at the highest standard of living, you're looking at Finland.
Yeah.
Finland is number one. And so, I do think that there's something there. It's the most good for the most number of people. But I do still think it's democracy or some sort of social democracy with all of our flaws.
The tax burden there is
high.
I think it's one of the highest in the world. But they are, from what I've read, very proud of that, actually, because they know that, and they do hold their government to a higher standard on how they use that money, too. I think that's one of the things that we do poorly is that we argue about taxation, but we don't really argue about what the government's actually doing with the funding that they already have. We don't, right? There's no real true accountability there. Yeah, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Sooner or later, you're talking about some real money, I guess,
Yeah, Finland views paying taxes as patriotic.
Right.
Because they have they have the happiest people in the world. They have one of the smoothest operating governments in the world. Some of the lowest crime rates.
One of the best education systems.
Yes, one of the best. Yeah. So they view it as patriotic. My money is going to a country that is great. So, empirically.
My question is, how diverse is that country?
Well, and that's another thing we get into. You get into countries that are so homogenous that the government can speak with one voice, and we are nowhere near that. So
we've had our issues because we have an immigrant tradition, and we've had groups that we've held down for so long, and it's hard to replicate.
We'll approach that question again next year when AI takes over, and we'll see if it has an answer.
I think any government that accepts the fact that humans have certain natural desires and needs, like capitalism admits that people are greedy, and we try to do, you can't just ignore that and try to make everything equal, because somebody's going to run out of the room with a bag of money. And so you have to kind of admit, yes, humans are flawed, and we're going to try to give incentives to help get us all in a better position. Because it would be great to think that we would all be unselfish, but that's just never been the reality. And I think that's why democracy, where more people have, Republican-type democracy, and capitalism has been, or at least quasi-capitalism. Obviously, we're not pure capitalism. We have schools, and you don't have to pay for this road out here. Somebody does that for you. So, I think it's that direction, but we're just got to keep improving it.
You know what I really hope happens with AI once it does take over is that they put like shot collars on politicians, and there's like a real-time fact check on them so that when they say something asinine, it immediately gives them some sort of shock and gets them back in line. Yeah. No, nobody else, just me? Okay. I think that'd be funny.
Civics, what do you think?
I mean, no. I don't think there's like an ideal or perfect form of government because, again, humans have flaws. Like, there's nothing. If I were going to change something, though, that I think could help be beneficial without, but also I know we have more than two political parties, but having other parties have that chance to actually do something and it not just be so politically divided.
Excellent.
By the way, there's a chance if Trump doesn't get, there's a lot of things here, but if he doesn't get the Republican nomination, he's not going away, and he has a lot of supporters. He could form his own party, and we could see 1912, the election where you have three parties and split. Now, obviously, Biden would limp into the White House, but it could be an opportunity for more parties to form. I doubt this is going to happen, but we have a moment that could happen here.
So you're saying that if he does go away, he won't go away?
Right. I mean, he's not going to ever quit, and he's got a good several million people that will follow him. So he could do the Teddy Roosevelt Bull Moose Party, and the Republicans do, a Mitt Romney type figure, DeSantis or whatever. Biden would win in a landslide, which he's probably going to do anyway, but 3 parties at least, and then maybe we could have some centrist voices out there. I don't know. Next question.
My name is TJ Caudill, and how many pennies do you think would fit in this room?
I've been thinking about this since we got here.
Me too.
And I've looked at about, I think I'm getting close to about 978 billion, but I could be off by a couple cents. I don't know. It's hard to tell. That corner, that pop up there, I'm not sure how wide that is, but that's throwing me off.
Does anybody actually have a penny in their pocket right now? Does anybody carry coins?
Let's start it, everybody.
Put your pennies.
We'll test this theory right now. You do have one? Well, hot dang, dude! I haven't carried coins
in that
years.
corner.
938 billion.
Well, if I switch lives with Mr.
there's
Hosey,
the
I
start,
could
yeah.
probably tell you.
Oh, yeah, there you go. See?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's way too much math for me, Brent.
No clue.
By the way, speaking of the penny, haven't they? Are we getting rid of the penny?
I think we're moving toward it. I don't know that we've officially done it.
You know, it cost our government more than a penny to make a penny. So we should be it'd save us like literally hundreds of thousands of dollars if we would just get rid of the penny.
What? I mean, wouldn't it be better just to move away from cash altogether, though? Stop printing money.
Maybe.
I mean, I don't
think it'll
carry
happen
cash. I
eventually.
don't actually carry cash at all. I
Until
got
a
debit
solar
card, credit
flare
card.
happens and nothing electronic works.
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
Bring up the solar flare. All right. Yeah, I mean, that's good call. Hoard gold. That's the answer.
Next.
Hello, my name is Liam Jeffers. I came up here because the line looks short, and I have several questions.
Okay.
So y'all get to choose. Do y'all want a silly or a serious question?
We just had the penny question, so hit us with something serious.
Okay.
Unless you took the other question seriously and then give us something silly.
Yeah. I guess in line with what Pike said, to say, like, ask another part of that, is there a perfect economy? And if there is, or if there isn't, what comes closest to you?
Mine's literally the same answer. It's going to be social democracy with a mixed economy. The issue with social democracy is getting enough people to agree that something is important enough for the government to fund it. And I mean, that's where larger countries with distinct voices and bigger, diverse populations just don't agree. I don't know how you fix that.
It works for me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting when they said perfect government, we went to the economy, really. Because that, you would think, because, economics is a science, but it is a social science. It's human. You would think, some economists would figure it out. Oh, with this many people, with this diverse you could just do it like math, but you can't.
No.
It's weird because we think that if we elect a businessman to run things, that'll help because they know business.
But the federal government doesn't work. That's not how state and federal government economics works, though. Like
if people knew that everybody that knew economics, if that worked that way, they'd all be millionaires. But economists are not rolling in the money either. Learning on the fly. I wish we could do amendments, though. I mean, I think I was a young little kid the last time an amendment was passed. You would think we could update our Constitution every now and then.
And that amendment was an original of the first 12.
I know. Not like it was
So it wasn't even new, and they just didn't sunset it.
Was that 92?
Yeah. So before that, go back to, 70? Was it 2 or 4? I don't know. Anyway.
All right, you have to explain that. I don't know what you're talking about.
So the First Amendment, as you know it, isn't the First Amendment.
Right, I did know that. Yeah.
Yeah, so the First Amendment proposed was to say that legislators couldn't vote themselves a pay raise in the term in which they sit. And that was not ratified, and it sat around and sat around and sat around, and finally enough states ratified it in 1992, and it became the 27th.
Ah. Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah, because of a college kid who got a C on a paper, and it made him mad. Because he said that it could still happen, and his professor said no. And he literally went on a public crusade. College professor had to give him an A after.
All right, next question.
My name is Jack Krause, and what do you all think of Marcus Aurelius Antonius and the policies and or ruling methods he used during his time as a Roman emperor?
I mean, he is considered the last great Roman emperor, right? So
I can't answer this question.
What do you do? Is there a backstory
it's part of
here?
the AP seminar stimulus packet.
Oh, that's tricky.
I was reading Meditations just the other day. Yeah, philosopher king. Wouldn't that make a good president? A philosopher king type person?
Seems like someone said that.
Yeah, seemed like somebody did.
Very Platonic. Yeah, well, I mean, are you a Marcus Aurelius fan? Yeah, sure.
I like him more than I'd say Nero. I think I'd put him above that.
Who would you put under Nero?
Yeah, that's a better question.
Caligula.
Oh yeah, that's a good answer.
You know what? No, but
you were
okay.
waiting for that.
No, I'm going to challenge that because I think Nero was purposefully a bastard. Whereas I think Caligula just couldn't help himself. There's a lot of speculation from historians about because there's a early Caligula where he was actually pretty popular and people trusted him and he was more of a man of the people kind of guy. But then again maybe I'm wrong about this, but I think he suffered some sort of illness. Yeah. And he seemingly had a personality change after that, and so I don't know that he was completely in control of his faculties, which is a different conversation about should he still have been emperor at that point. We can talk about Biden again if you want, but I think Nero was more purposefully who he was.
I can go with that.
Yeah.
Okay, Miss Diedrich, this is different, by the way. Since you're fairly new to teaching, was your first year at all what you expected?
Your first year was the COVID year, right?
Well, I mean, kind of. I student taught in the peak of COVID, coming back after quarantine. And I was at Pottsville, and then coming back or starting at Lakeside we started with masks, and then we got rid of masks and all that. There's a lot of things college did not prepare me for. I'll say that.
They're really good at editing if you want to just get it out.
No one's going to hear this. Earmuffs, everybody. Earmuffs.
I also... Well, I don't know. In college, I learned to lesson plan, and I had to write a 10-page lesson plan for everything I was going to teach. And then, if I'm going to be very honest, there was a lot of just winging it the day I came in my first year, and a lot of learning. And so, no, I don't think it was what I expected, but I wouldn't have changed anything. I learned a lot, and I kind of had a chaotic first year. There was some big changes that happened in the civics team, if you know what I mean. So
some of you know what she's talking about.
Mike Tyson once said, "Everyone has a plan until they get hit in the face," and that's kind of what it is to be a teacher that first year.
Man,
you go through college, you go through theory classes, and they talk about what it's going to be like, and then the students walk in, and you just scrap all that and figure it out.
Mike Tyson. Philosopher.
Who's Marcus Aurelius when you got Mike Tyson?
You got Mike Tyson.
No, but I think that's and from what you're saying too. I mean, I remember my first year. You learn a lot. They do not teach you how to be a teacher in teacher college. That's just not. I mean, not really. You hit the ground running and you learn on the job, and either you make it or you don't. I know a lot of people who came through that first year and they're like, nope.
Well, they try to teach you classroom management, and then you walk in and they didn't tell me what to do when a kid walks out my door and slams it. I wasn't expecting that kind of stuff. Or someone deciding to give another person a haircut in the middle of class. That's another thing you just aren't expecting. So there's a long list of things I never thought I would see or hear as a teacher.
In that first year, how long did it take you to feel like you were doing what you needed to do? How long was the transition, you think? Or did it take all year? Because I'll tell you that my whole first year, I was like, wow, you're right. You learn a lot. But
yeah, I would say it took me the whole year, but that's just because the first year first semester I was teaching civics and on-level world history. And then we had the big change. I no longer was teaching world history. I had all civics. I got a whole new set of students 2 weeks into the second semester. So there was a lot of things I hadn't anticipated. And so it took me the entire year.
I will say this, as a newish teacher when I first started, at the end of every year, probably for the first 5 or 6 years, I was excited for the next year to start because I had a better plan. And I was like, I'm starting from the beginning because it's easier to loosen the belt than it is to tighten it, if that makes any sense. Somebody said it to me and it made sense. So if you start real relaxed, kids will take advantage of you and it's hard to get them controlled. And so every year you learn a few tricks and then you implement them at the first of the next year. Until you're a robot like me. We have 2 more quick questions.
I'm Lily Harden. I go to ASMSA, and recently my school's been cracking down on students' social media posts. Yesterday, my friend got in trouble for cussing on her private Instagram story, and my roommate got in trouble for posting photos of the flies he found in his school cafeteria sandwich. And so I was wondering what your opinions as teachers are on students getting in trouble for their private social media posts.
Yeah, that's a lawyer question right there, boy.
Yeah, I mean, there may be a case that they need to hear about from the Supreme Court. I don't know if you know the case of the cursing cheerleader, but if you have heard of it, she went on a
Sounds like a Harry Potter book. Harry Potter in the case of the cursing cheerleader.
Or like a Hardy Boys or Nancy Drew. They don't know who that is.
That's why I didn't use it.
Yeah, I mean, private speech on your own time on a personal device is protected speech. Long story short, the cheerleader didn't make cheerleading the next year and let out a rant, and was suspended for it. And she took it all the way to the Supreme Court, and she won. So disclaimer: this is not legal advice. But however, I do think that is problematic. We'll say.
A question to add to that, as you said that,
okay.
I'm thinking. So would it be any different for like ASMSA because y'all live there, correct? Since they live there, if it's like pictures, would it be different if they're posting pictures? There's other people, they maybe didn't consent to the pictures.
And I'll tie into that too. Does it matter if they're on their school device as opposed to a personal device?
If they're on their school device, it can be more heavily regulated. That's why I said if they're on if they're on a personal device on a private account. As far as living there, no, not really, because at any point in time, the school is acting in loco parentis. It's still a public school, so it's no different when they're there, even if they're living there, than a kid taking a picture in our cafeteria and posting it, which they do take pictures all over the place and post it. So as long as they're not breaking, like you said, like cyberbullying or other people that are in it that shouldn't be in it, disclosing if there are rules against that. That would be the only area of concern. But yeah.
Yeah, take that back to school and tell them what we said. or
I'm
have
sure
them listen
they
to the
will
podcast.
jump right on that.
All right, last question.
Okay, what's up? I'm Emerson, and my question is, why do you think South Park has maintained popularity after all of its political controversies and risk of death from that very specific episode?
Because they are poorly drawn cartoons, and it's hard to get mad at a cartoon. If that was a live show, they would have been canceled years ago. But it is the thing. It's animation makes it different. It's not an actual person. They have 3 fingers or whatever. It's the same thing with The Simpsons and all the people and look, they're genius shows too, and they push the bounds of what you can and can't say. I think we're going to look back at South Park and The Simpsons as some of the most groundbreaking programs, and they don't get the credit right now because a lot of adults, old people, look at them as they're just cartoons. But they actually are saying quite a bit, and I think because they're animation, they can get away with it.
But now we're the old people. That's South Park's been on for 23 years, I think, or something like that. So we've gone from, to the old people. So maybe they will get recognition.
So. All right.
South Park's how I learned my first curse word.
Oh, there you go.
Which one was it?
I don't know. I've never watched it, but my dad had a South Park shirt and it said something on it. And I was learning to read and I read it and my mom loved that. She loved it.
Everything I need to know I learned from South Park. All right, everybody.
We'll see you. Thank you so much,
Thank you,
Collective
Collective.
Coffee. Good night, everybody.